am Margaret Bouse, and I'm really excited today to have Jackie Bouse as the guest on our podcast. Yes, we have the last name, and that's because Jackie is my daughter. Welcome, Jackie.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. I know you a little bit, so when you said want to come on the podcast, I was like, of course, why not? Here to talk about marketing, which will be really fun.
All right, that's great. It's been kind of a dream come true that you've chosen to go into the marketing field. I didn't know where you were going to take your career, and so it's neat that you've chosen to do that because we get to collaborate.
Yeah, well, for many reasons, I was heavily inspired watching you in your career. So when I was trying to figure out what I was doing, I was like, let me give marketing a try. And it was just honestly one of the most fun things I got to do in college and to learn, because marketing can really be applied anywhere to any business in any field, really, about marketing yourself, product, a business, whatever it is. It's very versatile, and that's what I like about it.
All right, I love it. I found the same thing. Okay, so today's topic, we're going to talk about internships. And one of our goals for today is really helping small businesses and nonprofits develop an internship program that's a win-win for the intern, and to give them a good idea of some practical advice that we've both learned through doing, and help share some of those insights so that they have the best internship experience, not just for themselves, but also for the intern.
Yeah, excited to talk about it.
All right, great. So one of the things that we talked about before the call was that it's kind of important to develop a structure for the internship. So I'm curious what your thoughts are about developing a formal program.
So, for a company thinking about an internship, and I have been an intern and I've also been the manager of an intern. So, I've seen both sides. As the manager of an intern, one of the things that I thought was really important, taking from that experience of being an intern, is you really want it to be a two-way street in terms of they get something out of it, like you said, but also we get something out of it as well. So when I think about the program, obviously it needs to be something related to the business that, there's help needed, or you want to try something new and you want somebody dedicated to that, as well as something where the intern is learning a new skill that they didn't have through textbooks, Chromebooks, whatever it is they're doing nowadays. So for me, when I thought about my internship that I did, I really thought of it as like a course. So you sort of start off easy, you start off learning different skills that maybe they might have some introduction into, but then take it to the next level. So for me and my intern in marketing, I wanted them to, by the end of a 10-week program, have run from ideation to actually execution and thinking about how they would have done it better for a marketing campaign of their own. So obviously I was there to help them. They got to witness me doing one so they could take learnings from that. And they knew that I was there for them. But I wanted them to sort of walk away with, I got to run a marketing campaign. And this particular one had a webinar at the end. So they were in charge of the webinar end to end. Who are the speakers? What's the topic? Running the actual email campaigns, the multi-channel campaigns, and then actually being the host and running that themselves. So I wanted them to walk away so they had something on their resume that said, I got to do this. And this is something in a market where there's just a lot of people wanting to do various things in different fields, where they could go, this particular applicant got to do an entire campaign end to end and talk real numbers about how it went. Let me talk to that individual. So I thought that that was really important when structuring an internship, is that they got to walk away. And then for me, this is something that I do regularly. So it was nice to be able to pass this to somebody who I knew would do a really good job. And that's something you have to think about in the internship hiring process. Do you think this person can do it with the right help? And then you get to shift your focus somewhere else and focus on something else maybe you didn't have the time and energy to do before. So that's how I think about the process.
I love that, because one of the things that is a byproduct of that is really you're attracting the best interns then. You're attracting the kinds of interns that want to be responsible and accountable for something, and they want that practical experience and that they're going to put the time in to learn and to execute. They're not looking for the easy
A.
It's one of the things I love about actually writing up the internships as job descriptions, putting what the learning plan is going to be and what the anticipated kind of outcomes of that project are going to be. Any of the interns that I've had over the past 15 or so years, I've had the benefit of being able to do it in a structured program where we actually define the job description, put together the high level goals of what we're trying to achieve. But then the extra layer that I try to do is when we're finding the candidates, really seeing what it is that they're passionate about. What do they want to learn? What are they hoping to accomplish? And actually creating for each intern a structured learning program that gives them an opportunity to focus in areas where they have a particular set of skills that they want to learn or that they're really excited about. And so it's a little bit of a bigger lift for the manager in that context because you are literally customizing an internship. If you only have one intern, it's not as big a deal. I've had 3 to 5 interns at a time sometimes. And it's kind of like creating a little mini department because they each would then wind up with a little bit different role, different areas of focus, different outcomes aligned to what it was that they were trying to learn. And then I would kind of orchestrate that in the context of what work needs to be done. So I think there's a lot to be said for also pre-thinking out what level the company wants to basically manage in the internship program. So is it something where it might make more sense for a company, particularly if they're smaller, to say, okay, here's the internship. It's highly structured. This is exactly what we want. This is how it's going to be managed. And these are the outcomes versus having a little bit more flexibility and versatility, which you can tend to do with either a bigger company or when someone who's in charge of the umbrella is really structuring the internship. Then you can create those specialty areas. The thing I like also about those larger internship programs is the interns get to learn what it's like to be part of a cohort in the context of a enterprise. And they get to learn what it's like to basically be part of a process. In addition to those things that you were talking about, where they could have their own vertical thing also that they're in charge of, that they get to say and have like a case study for their resume. The other thing that I do is I encourage the interns to develop their own personal pages, whether that's on LinkedIn using the key projects section, or if they're going to go into Canva or Wix and create an actual profile website and create a case study for the projects that they're doing during the internship and have that be part of what they can present to an employer when they go to interview.
Yeah, one thing I would add to that as well is, as the manager, it's important to engage with that. If you see an intern posting about a project, now hopefully, I work in the security industry, so sometimes the things that we work on, we really can't promote. But if it is something that can be promoted and the intern is like, I did this or I'm working on this, it's really important if you can to get yourself involved as the manager online, giving them kudos and telling them how well they did. But also, if you have any influence over the company's social media, getting them to engage as well, also not only boosts the company looking like that they're good stewards for interns, but also the intern themselves, when they go to show this later on, they can say, the company reposted my LinkedIn post saying how well of a job that I did and how much they loved me as an intern. So I think that's something cool as well. If you're connected to that, then that's something that I also recommend that you suggest as well.
And I think for a lot of the folks that we're talking about, in terms of who might be actually listening to this podcast, it's going to fit well because they're probably not the really big enterprises. The big enterprises, they have their structured internship programs. We're really kind of talking about what smaller and mid-sized businesses might do, nonprofits, et cetera.
Mhm.
where the hiring manager has a lot of control over what the internship program looks like. When I'm interviewing interns, I find that one of the things that they are up against is a lot of the internships that they are applying for are highly menial work,
Mhm.
data entry, for example, where there's just really not a great learning experience for the intern, and the company is more using them as an administrative resource.
Mhm.
Not that there's anything wrong with being administrative, but that's not the purpose of the internship. The purpose of the internship is to learn practical marketing skills. So, this is kind of a call to action, really, for the employers to say, let's make sure that it really is, to your point earlier, a really solid win-win, and
Mhm.
that we're not simply, I've worked for companies in the distant past where they talked about internships as, those are warm bodies, you
Mhm.
know, warm bodies to make all the copies and do the data entry and handle the mailing. And you want something more out of your internship than posting direct mail or things that can be highly repetitive. They don't get the outcome out of it that helps them, A, learn practical skills, and B, sets them up for success when they're trying to compete for jobs when they get out of school.
And I also feel like sometimes you see companies using this, like you said, maybe they can't bring on a contractor full time or they can't bring on a new head. And so they'll use the internship idea to say, all right, in 10 weeks, I'm going to jam as much possible on the plate of this intern to do menial Excel work for me because I don't have any other resources to do it. So, one thing that I would ask is that when you're looking at doing the internship and thinking about bringing on an intern, what are you really trying to do? Because the intern, if they think that they're working for this great company doing this great thing, and then it turns into this menial work, obviously there might be some menial work that happens. You need help with structure. Maybe this intern can help you with this. But really, you don't want them to walk away and go, man, all I did was data. Like, that's not what I signed up for. I'm looking for a skill. Maybe I didn't know it going in, but I learned it by week 2. And then I had to do it for the rest of my weeks. Those people are likely not the ones who are going to promote your business online saying that you were a great company to work for because they just had a very mediocre experience with you. So if you need help with things like that, okay, but you need to mix in and listen to the intern on what they want to learn, like you said, and put that into the program so that they walk away saying, yes, I had to do this, but I also got to take this away as well, whatever the program is, project, whatever it is.
So that's an opportunity for me to talk about something that I wanted to make sure was part of today's podcast, which is that there can be an opportunity for an employer to actually work side by side with a school in order to develop internship programs that are highly valuable and that can earn class credit. So oftentimes for a bachelor's or a master's degree, an internship is required, and it gives you an opportunity really to work with the dean or work with the chair of that department. Let's say it's marketing or finance, whatever the case may be. In our case, we're talking about marketing, but to actually structure a program where the student not only gets class credit, but there's an opportunity for them to perhaps even earn a grade because of the outcomes. And usually what happens with that is then you as an employer, you're held accountable to make
Mhm.
sure that you're actually executing the program the way that you defined it ahead of time. And so that when the internship ends, there's usually communication back to the school that helps that student check the box. Yes, I did certain number of hours. Yes, these are the things that I learned, but also gives an opportunity for the employer to give structured feedback to the
Mhm.
student and to the chair or the dean or assistant dean, and then to result in a grade. So
Yep.
sometimes those internships, you might get a C plus, or you might get an A. A lot depends on the employer to
Right.
make sure that all of the stars are aligned and all the pieces and parts are in place to make sure that the student can get that great grade.
Yeah. I would like to know as well is as thinking, putting my intern hat on, And this might not be revolutionary, but I think it is important to note. A free internship is not going to bring you the best candidates, especially nowadays. If you can't pay for an intern, I highly recommend, like Marg said, to work with a school to get a grade. Because otherwise, a free internship, you're not going to get the people who are really driven to get something done because maybe they're balancing other schoolwork or they're balancing jobs that are actually paying them. And they need you or they want you for some degree of maybe part of a class or maybe to learn something. But the ones who are going to come in for a free internship that doesn't really walk away with anything, they're not going to put in the effort that someone who's looking for class credit or is looking to get paid is going to do. So I understand that sometimes you cannot pay for an intern. That, especially with small businesses, it can be tough. You should work with a school or you should work with an organization or something where the student walks away with something at the end, like a certificate or something that they can put somewhere that shows that they put in the effort and sort of keeps them accountable too. Because in that time of life, you're balancing a lot of things. And so you want to make sure that when they're there doing the internship with you, that they're locked in, that they know exactly what they have to do. And they're not going to slack because then that's not good for the intern. That's not good for you. So having something there that's like, okay, I can walk away with this, a grade, like I said, certificate, whatever it is. Ideally, if you can pay, that's when you're going to get the most engagement out of students because they know that they're working 20, 40 hours a week, getting paid this amount, and they're going to work towards this because they're getting monetary value in return. And especially right now in this current economy, students are looking for ways to support their livelihood and to live. Things are really expensive. So if you can do that, or you can work with the company to figure out a way to do like maybe a mix of something, you're going to get the people who are the most committed. And I know it's very transactional. I disagree because, again, I'm helping you in your life circumstance. And I'm hoping that you're doing something that you really enjoy to do. So let's lock in together. I'll create a great program for you. You execute. Everyone wins.
Okay. I love that. I love that. So this is an opportunity for me to share something that some employers may not know, which is whether or not you can actually do a free internship requires meeting federal and state guidelines. And one of those guidelines, the biggest one, is a multi-question test of who the primary beneficiary is of the internship. If the primary beneficiary is the employer in getting free labor, you actually cannot have a free internship. So one of the things that we'll do in today's show notes is provide a link to the Fair Labor Standards Act, because that way, anybody who's not familiar with that concept of whether or not you can or can't do a free internship, they'll have a resource to go to. But in short, what it does is it examines what they call the economic reality of who the primary beneficiary is of the internship. And if it's anyone other than the intern, then you really can't do it for free. So like I said, we'll put that in the show notes and people will be able to use that as a reference for their program.
Yeah, no one wants to get in trouble.
No. And it's also, just integrity and ethics.
Exactly. You don't want to take advantage of these kids.
You don't want to take advantage, especially when things are really rough in the job market right now. And if you're going to commit to an internship program, you need to be all in and commit to it in a way where that internship comes out of your program with practical knowledge that they can demonstrate to an employer to help set them apart from other candidates. It's really, really difficult right now for new graduates to find any kind of entry-level position in their chosen major. It can be very, very, very difficult. And so they're having to take jobs in other market segments because that's what's available, but it's not necessarily what fires them. So if you can give them as much opportunity to learn practical skills, that's great. And that gives me one other thing to talk about, which is it's not just about what they learn in the internship itself, it's great to actually take on kind of a mentor role for them and to have a relationship with them that's beyond the actual internship. So, offering them career seeking advice, helping them network with potential employers, projects that they might do in classwork or after your program. It would be great if they could reach out to you and say, hey, I'm struggling with such and such. Can you give me some feedback on this idea? Or I'm going to go and interview for a marketing specialist position. It would really help me tremendously if I could have you as a reference. Would you be willing to be a reference? And then putting those references on LinkedIn, to your point about social media earlier, to the degree that the employer can support the internship by actually give them a call out on LinkedIn and give them an actual formal recommendation in LinkedIn. Again, I know some big companies, they have a lot of protocol for whether you can or can't give recommendations. But certainly for the target market that we're talking about for this podcast, which is small and medium businesses and nonprofits, you should be able to develop a policy that would allow you to support those internships as they enter into the workforce and the folks that you've built a relationship with over 8, 10, 12 weeks. It would be really nice to be able to support them beyond when the internship ends.
And one of the things, so not this past summer when I did my internship where I had an intern, I think it was the summer before. One of the things that I suggested and actually came into fruition was looking at our intern class, because maybe, you have one intern, but maybe you have more than one in different areas of the business. And I wanted to do a sit down with them, talking about on video what their experience was like working at the company. What were they looking to get out of this? What were they enjoying about the company? And giving that to the intern so they have a talking head video of them talking about the company, talking about the internship, talking about their specialization that they can use and have pinned on their LinkedIn account. Here's how my internship went with XYZ company. Something to sort of be not just written, because we're in a society where video is really important.
Right.
If you're willing and you have the resources to sit down on video with your intern, and not only is good for the company, again, showing that you have a good internship program, even as a small business, you're going to get a lot more interest out of people if you continue to do programs or continue to do business. There's that corporate social responsibility, right? But also for the intern as well, they can take that with them. They can be like, hi, hiring manager, look at this video that I did with my previous internship where they valued me enough that they did a video on my experience with them. Here's my resume as well. But then this market where you really need to differentiate yourself, I suggest maybe trying to weave that into the program as well.
I love that. I think that would be really, really valuable. Okay, Jackie. So what kind of closing advice do you have, either for interns or for the employers, or both?
So I'll end with something that I witnessed when I was going through the hiring process for my intern last summer. The job market is kind of in a weird spot. There's a lot of things going on. When I posted for my internship, which was a customer marketing internship, within 24 hours, I had over 300 applicants. It's impossible to go through that. But I wanted to note that is the environment that we're in right now. So many students are looking for internships to do. And so as the hiring manager, you have to think about, what's my criteria? What am I really looking for out of this intern? We talked a lot about the program itself, but what are you looking for out of the intern? How driven do you want them to be? How aligned to current skills do you want them to be? What are you hoping that they learn? And what do they need to know coming in, if anything? And, maybe you're not going to be able to review all 300. So you start from just going through as much as you can. For me, I made a list of, here's my ideal persona of an intern for this particular program, because this one was sort of like a higher yield internship, one that needed a little bit of experience. I wanted somebody who was driven. You sort of think about what that person looks like, without being bias as much as you can. This is what the personality of the person I'm looking for. Because I don't always need the person to be an exact fit. You're never going to find an exact fit. Even in 300 people, you're not going to find an exact fit. Here's who I need for this internship. And then start going through it. And then I made a cap for myself. My cap was a little high. I think I picked 20 applicants. And then I did the 20 applicant process, slowly removing people who didn't quite fit, whether it was the mission or their skill set wasn't quite what I was looking for, or whatever it was. I don't recommend doing 20. Maybe do something like 5 or 7. Do that batch first. See if any one of them fits the bill.
Okay.
If not, go back. Go back to your list. Start where you were. Because it's so hard because like as an intern, you're thinking like, oh, this job was posted 72 hours ago. There's probably 400 people in there. It's really hard for the intern right now. There's only so much that the hiring manager can do. There's only so much that the intern can do. But all the hiring manager can really do is try to find somebody who fits well. And so take the time to do that. Don't be like, I need to find somebody within a week and a half. Like take the time, especially if you want this to be a high yield internship, and go through the applicants, but do them in batches. See if any of them fit. Go back to the drawing board if none of them are a good match for you. Because it's not going to be beneficial for them in the long run anyways. Do it in small batches. But this is sort of the reality that we're in, is that a lot of students are up against X number of internships, and they're trying to do whatever they want to do, want to learn, want class credit, whatever it is. Do what you can. And I suggest, again, going through those batches to find hopefully the best person for the internship.
Okay. I love that. And one of the things that I wanted to add for employers at the end, the closing thought, is to be willing to think outside the box for what is your ideal intern. One of the things that I'm seeing is that folks are coming out of their baccalaureate programs looking for an internship post-grad. They're looking for a place to learn, and they're not necessarily a junior. They might be sitting there and they've got their bachelor's degree, but they really need that practical experience to help them actually get their full-time permanent position.
So my intern that I brought on this past summer, to your point, he was a master's student. He was still in school, but he had finished his bachelor's and he was in his master's program. He had moved from being a paralegal into wanting to do marketing. And so he had all this raw, when you want to be a lawyer, that's one of the things I really liked about him, is that he was meticulous and that he was driven. He made this career shift and he was doing something different, and he needed that practical experience because he didn't do marketing internships to this level before. But this is an example of somebody who had the skills and was looking to apply into something different. And I was like, I'm going to choose you because you have the drive, you have the skills just applied somewhere else. And so I want to give you this opportunity because you show that you care about the company, you care about what we're doing, you want to learn. Like there's that hunger there. I would say look for the hunger if you can. And those are the people who are going to show up the best.
I love it. I think that's really great advice. All right. So I think for closing thoughts, what we will do is provide some show notes down in the speaker notes below. And there'll be an opportunity for you to gain some access to resources. And I think we'll also perhaps provide some links that are specific to Massachusetts, which is the state that we happen to be in. Massachusetts has a workforce development organization, the workforce development arm of the state government that often has resources for companies that want to engage with interns. And so we'll provide a link for that as well in the show notes. I encourage you to go and see what kind of resources might be out there between either your local schools and universities, your workforce development agency that is part of your state government, even networking with companies that you have a relationship with, and find out what they're doing for internship programs that they're working, and use that as a blueprint for how you might want to apply that into your own space. And of course, we're going to be posting this on YouTube, so feel free to also put comments below, and we'll do our best to answer questions there as well.
Great. Thank you for having me today. It was really awesome.
Thank you for coming.